Hare Krishna, dear friends. This is an initiative to read Bhagavad Gita systematically, go through every page of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and try to understand the spirit of Prabhupada's commentary as well as our acharyas, what they have communicated in that particular part of Bhagavad Gita. So this is going to be mostly a reading session along with the explanation of the commentaries, as well as we'll have some simple question and answer sessions as well as we go through, because trying to understand the different parts of Bhagavad Gita would sometimes overwhelm us. So we will do mainly reading, along with that our explanation of different parts of Bhagavad Gita as well.
And my name is Mohini Madhavi, and this is my husband. So I will be asking so many questions from my husband. He will try answering everything according to the acharyas.
Okay, thank you. So we'll start with a simple prayer. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay, we will start with introduction. So in the introduction, Prabhupada is going to give some Mangalacharan prayers in the beginning, and then he will introduce the Bhagavad Gita to us. So we'll read through that.
Can I read first, Prabhu?
Yes.
Okay, I'll read the first prayer and then translation. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Om Ajnantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet?
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sagagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa and Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Shivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Sri Vishaka. So I'll continuously read, then you can read after some time.
Okay.
He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpade Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Oh, my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, and who is the queen of Vrindavana. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Sri Vasa, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Here, Prabhupada is offering Mangalacharan prayers. So, in a Mangalacharan prayer, Prabhupada is offering his obeisances to different people. What is a Mangalacharan prayer? Mangalacharan prayer is defined in a verse where it says that the author, before writing a book in traditional Vedic society, he can give blessings to the reader in the beginning part of the book or work, any work he is attempting to do. Or he can offer obeisances to his elders or to the reader itself. Or he can explain about the subject matter of the work he is going to do, in short. Here, Srila Prabhupada is offering his obeisances in the beginning to his spiritual master and to the Goswamis who are the founders of the Gaudiya Vaishnava movement. And after offering them, he then offers to the Panchatattva, who gave the knowledge to all the 6 Goswamis. Even though Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the founder of the Sampradaya, he did not write any books. All the 6 Goswamis wrote the book. So he then offers to Krishna Chaitanya along with the associates. And then finally he offers Sri Radha and Krishna along with their associates Lalita and Vishaka, etc.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like, why he starts with Srila Rupa Goswami first?
So Rupa Goswami, yeah.
Afterwards.
Your question is whether why he starts with Rupa Goswami or...
yeah, in this one day Hamshi. So here he first offers to Srila Rupa Goswami and then goes to other Goswamis.
Oh, among the Goswamis, why he is offering first to Rupa Goswami.
Yeah.
So Rupa Goswami is said to be the founder of the entire Gaudiya Sampradaya in one sense, in the sense that all the followers of Gaudiya Sampradaya are called Rupa Anugas. Rupa Anuga. Anuga means the followers of Rupa Goswami. So he is representing all the 6 acharyas, but his contribution to the Gaudiya Sampradaya is a lot, and it's last longing. That's why he is offered the first obeisances, even though his elder brother, who is Sanatana Goswami, is elder to him. Because we are all called Rupanugas, Prabhupada is offering his obeisances first to Rupa Goswami, especially.
And another thing is, by whom is written this Mangalacharan? Vande Hamshi Gurun and this person.
Who has written that?
Yeah.
I don't know who specifically has written that, but this is a general poem that we all, the Gaudiya Vaishnava devotees, recite in the beginning as the Mangalacharan.
Okay.
Then he offers to Krishna specifically, and then he then offers his obeisances to Radharani, and then he offers his obeisances to all the Vaishnavas, and he again offers his obeisances to the Panchatattva, and he utters the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So then now we begin the first part of the introduction. Madhu, you can read.
Okay, Brahma. Bhagavad Gita is also known as Gita Upanishad. It is the essence of Vedic knowledge and one of the most important Upanishads in Vedic literature. Of course, there are many commentaries in English on the Bhagavad Gita, and one may question the necessity for another one. This present edition can be explained in the following way. Recently, an American lady asked me to recommend an English translation of Bhagavad Gita. Of course, in America, there are so many editions of Bhagavad Gita available in English. But as far as I have seen, not only in America, but also in India, None of them can be strictly said to be authoritative, because in almost every one of them, the commentator has expressed his own opinions without touching the spirit of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So here I have lots of questions. First of all, why Bhagavad Gita is known as Gita Upanishad, and what are the Upanishads?
Yeah.
And how we can discriminate which Bhagavad Gita is the best and which one is not the best. So three questions.
Yeah. So, what are all the Upanishads? I'll address that question first. There are so many Upanishads. So if you take the Vedic literature, there are 4 Vedas which are said to be Shruti, which is Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, and Atharva Veda. So in each Veda is further divided into 4 parts: Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Samhitas, and Upanishad. Rig Veda has all these 4 parts, Yajur Veda has all these 4 parts, Sama Veda has these 4 parts, and then Atharva Veda has all these 4 parts. So Samhitas, let's look at the 4 parts. Okay, Vedas have 4 parts: Rig, Yajur, Sam, Atharva. We have 4 Vedas. These are called Shrutis, and each Veda has Samhita, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishad. So this 4 further categorization is there for other Vedas as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the part which we are discussing here is the Upanishad. So there is one Upanishad called Muktika Upanishad. Muktika Upanishad, which describes which talks about 108 Upanishads, which lists out the names of 108 Upanishads, and the first 10 of them, or the principal ones, are called Isha, Kena, Kata, Mundaka, Mandukya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka, and so on. So in all of these Upanishads, what are being taught? So the Upanishad, the Brahman or the Supreme Lord, is glorified in all these Upanishads. And how one can get out of this material world and finally achieve liberation is the part which is described in the Upanishads. But if you look at the other parts, Samhitas, it's more or less glorifications of the demigods to achieve different things. And the Brahmanas and Aranyakas are more talking about the Vedic sacrifices. Aranyakas onwards, you will start seeing that one enters into the forest life or Vanaprastha life. And then the Upanishad is where you try to get out of this material world. All these topics are described there, the Upanishads. So when we say Bhagavad Gita as a Gita Upanishad, it actually represents all the Upanishads. Bhagavad Gita is actually not Upanishad, technically speaking. It is part of Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, in the war field, Krishna is talking to Arjuna, and that's where Bhagavad Gita is coming. And the Mahabharata is called Smriti. So we have Shruti, and then we have Smriti, and then
What's the difference between Smriti and Shruti, Prabhu?
okay, Shrutis, they don't change the words or anything. You'll get the same words in every creation of the universe. The creation of the universe itself is advanced topic. So the Shrutis, they don't change their words. Not even a single akshara changes that. They just continuously exist like that eternally. Whereas Smritis are compiled by the different realized sages by themselves. And they are more or less like commentaries for the Shrutis. Because when you go on to read Upanishad, you will not understand many parts. For example, if you take Kata Upanishad or the other Upanishad, which is Kata Upanishad. So Kata Upanishad, it will start saying something in the middle,
you want to be able to understand what is it talking about, why it's talking about incoherent things which are not related things, in each verses. But when you read through the Smriti, which are the realizations of the sages who are in very high realization in spiritual path, you'll understand it very easily. So there are what all the Smritis are available in general. So we have Smriti. In that we have Puranas and Itihasas, and we have Puranas, Itihasas, and then in the Puranas we have 18 Puranas, and then the Itihasas we have Mahabharata and Ramayana, and inside Mahabharata we have Bhagavad Gita, and in the Puranas we also have Srimad Bhagavatam as the highest Purana, right, and so on. So if you look at the entire Vedic literature, you have Shrutis and you have Shmutis.
So there are 4 Vedas, and like why, if they all have Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyakas, Upanishad, why they are in 4? Like why they cannot be 1 Veda?
So initially it was a one Veda, and then Vyasadeva actually divides that into 4 Vedas because our Kali Yuga people, we cannot read so much and then understand. So he divides the Vedas into multiple parts and then gives to his different disciples to take care of the particular Veda. And then they pass on to their disciples, the disciples. We can still see in some parts of India where they practice the actual, the Samhita and Brahmana parts of the Vedas. So initially it was one Veda, which is called, I think, Yajur. And then that Veda is again further divided into 4 parts: Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva.
Okay, so
For Kali Yuga people to understand as well, he has written Puranas, which is Jiva Goswami says Purnayate. Basically, it completes the Vedas. So if you just study Vedas on your own, you won't be able to understand anything. So Puranas are like commentary on the Vedas. So if you understand Puranas nicely and then you go and read the Vedas, you will be able to understand. I cannot hear your voice. You are muted.
What's the difference between Puranas and Itihasas, and why it's easier to understand reading Puranas and Itihasas, other Vedas? Why it's easier?
One thing is it is easier, as well as the other part is the qualification. So if you want to read Vedas, you have to be a qualified person. Not everyone can read Vedas. One has to have a Brahminical qualification, and then one has to go to the Gurukul and then sit under a Guru and then study. So much austerities one needs to practice. But if you look at Smriti, anybody can read it, the Puranas. That's one part. The other part is that Puranas are told in a story format, so that you will, instead of trying to understand abstract philosophy, if it is done in a stories, you will be able to easily understand it. It is more verbose in nature, whereas Upanishads are very brief in nature, and then one part to another part they won't connect many places. So, but Puranas are not like that. They are just very coherent, and then you can just read through. So the difference between Puranas and Itihasas is that Puranas are different stories are compiled together, and then a Purana is made. For example, if you take Srimad Bhagavatam, there are so many stories told in Puranas. Whereas in Itihasas, there will be a focus on one particular dynasty. For example, in Mahabharata, Pandavas are the Kurus, are the main dynasty, and the entire Mahabharata is focusing on the Kuru dynasty. Whereas in Ramayana, it is Raghuvamsha, or the Lord Ram's pastimes are more focused on that. So that's the difference between Puranas and Itihasas.
And you said that Smriti can be changed, but Shruti cannot be changed.
Right.
So it means that every time we will have different Puranas and different Mahabharata.
Yeah. So that also depends on the realization of the sage who is creating the Purana. So you usually Vyasadeva compiles all these things in every beginning of every Kali Yuga. Before that, it's all oral. So in the beginning of Kali Yuga, Vyasadeva created these Puranas. Now, the Vyasadeva which created these Puranas in this Kali Yuga, which is we are in the 7th Manvantara and the 28th Chatur Yuga. And in this particular Kali Yuga, the Vyasa's name is Krishna Vaipayana Vyasa. So he is non-different from the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord himself comes as Vyasa sometimes. And this is the time where Lord himself has come as Vyasa. His name is Krishna Dvaipayana Vyasa. Every Kali Yuga, there will be a different, every Dwapara Yuga, there will be a different Vyasadeva appearing. Different persons will be appointed as a Vyasa. Basically, Vyasa is a post. And this time, it is Krishna Dvaipayana who is Lord himself comes as Vyasa and then he compiles. And because Lord himself has compiled all these things, you cannot expect more realization than Vyasa, than the literature we have got. So these are the highest realization.
Okay, but um, um, if Smritis keep on changing, does it mean that the pastimes also keep on changing?
There different emphasis will be there. However, Jiva Goswami in Sandarbha, he says that Tattva Sandarbha, that even Puranas are also eternal. They stay in the Swargaloka. If you go to Swargaloka, you might see Srimad Bhagavatam is a very big version. What we have got is a abridged version of that thing. So in that sense, different emphasis will be there on particular pastimes. Where in the next Kali Yuga, probably the emphasis will be on different sets of pastimes, things like that.
Then here Prabhupada says that Bhagavad Gita as it is, but if you're saying it is from Mahabharata, which is Smriti, so it may change all the time, the meaning of Bhagavad Gita.
There is one Bhagavad Gita where I heard a lecture from the source where Krishna is, there is a particular planet where Krishna is talking to Arjuna continuously a long Bhagavad Gita. That is a very big Bhagavad Gita. So yeah, of course you can get different versions of Bhagavad Gita, but what Krishna has spoken to Arjuna at the beginning of the battle in this Dwapara Yuga, that as it is presented here in this book without any interpretation. So basically, the Bhagavad Gita was taught to Arjuna, and Arjuna is a devotee of Krishna. So how a devotee will understand the entire Bhagavad Gita is given here as it is. That's what Prabhupada is describing, and we'll later talk more on that.
And why he was calling Bhagavad Gita as Gita Upanishad?
Because if you read the Upanishads, you will see that many philosophies that which are already described in Bhagavad Gita will be coming there. So basically, Gita is like a summary of all the Upanishads. You see that there are so many textbooks. How are you going to read everything and then come to conclusion? It is very difficult, first of all, to read, first of all, to find, because we don't have entire portions of the Samhitas. Many things are lost. Many Upanishads are lost. So we cannot come read, first of all, we don't have access. Then you have to go and read everything. And after reading everything, then you have to come to a conclusion. It's going to be very difficult. So there is one book which you can get the summary of all the Upanishads is Bhagavad Gita. And Srimad Bhagavatam is more elaborate. It elaborates more on the Bhagavad Gita, we can say, and then it gives much more than the fundamentals given in Bhagavad Gita.
Okay. And regarding how to, like, there are so many Bhagavad Gitas, and Prabhupada is saying many of them are not as it is. So how simple people like us will discriminate which one is as it is, which one is not?
That's a good question. So basically, when I go to study some subject, let's say computer science, C, C++. So what I will do is that I will go and find out a textbook which is practiced by that person. The author should have practiced what he has done. So let's say a computer book, a C++ programming book is written by an author who has never programmed in his life, but he has studied several books on C++ and then he writes his own book. I would obviously never take that book. So you should take Bhagavad Gita from a person who is living the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. So you have to first approach a person and then see whether he is following the entire instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita or not. And then if that person is following the things what is being said in Bhagavad Gita, then you can obviously, take the teachings from the Bhagavad Gita to try to understand. But for that, we need to have some preliminary understanding of what Bhagavad Gita is trying to say, at least, right? So that's where Prabhupada is giving an introduction. Once you read this introduction, you get to know what the Bhagavad Gita subjects are being discussed. Then you can see that, who is actually following the principles of Bhagavad Gita. Then you can follow their Bhagavad Gita. There are many politicians have written Bhagavad Gita, but then they finally come to the conclusion that nationalism is the highest thing. You see, Krishna never talks like that. You can read the entire verses or just the translation to see what Krishna is talking about. So one person should follow the principles, and the second person is whom Krishna is giving this instruction. Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that because I'm giving you this knowledge at the end of 18th chapter, I'm giving you this knowledge because you are my friend and you are my devotee. So it was given for a devotee. So one should try to approach a devotee and take this knowledge.
But these days, it's very tough to recognize a person. We mostly see them online, YouTube, and these things. But we never interact with them very closely and don't know how they eat, what do they do in the morning and practice. We never know about this.
Yeah. So in that case, we have access to Srila Prabhupada's life. We can read the life history of Prabhupada and then try to understand how he presented. So we don't need to go to anywhere else because we have Bhagavad Gita as it is. We can just try to read Prabhupada's life and then see how he lived, and then see how authentic Bhagavad Gita as it is.
No, I mean, if some person doesn't know about Prabhupada, but he's searching for Bhagavad Gita, I'm talking about that person. How he will discriminate which one is good, which one is not.
How he will discriminate, that depends on his intelligence. If he is an intelligent person, he can go through the translations of Bhagavad Gita and then he can arrive some sort of understanding. And then based on that, he can search for a person who can give the right knowledge. If he is not very intelligent, then it is going to be very difficult. But what we can do is that what we as devotees can do is help those people to tell them how you can find the right thing, right? So we are giving the Bhagavad Gita as it is directly. You don't need to go and do a survey of whole Gitas. There are so many commentaries. Do a survey of all the commentaries and try to understand who is teaching what and come to the conclusion. That is going to be very big deal. That is going to be more than reading all the Vedas and coming to conclusion. So as we are devotees, we can give them this knowledge. Bhagavad Gita as it is there. Then here is the Prabhupada who has written the book, and here is the author. You can read about the life of the author and then see how he has lived that life.
Or else, now there may be so many commentators may not be in this world already. So a person didn't meet a devotee yet. So maybe he can find a person who is reading particular Bhagavad Gita, and then he's himself practicing very nicely, like he's purifying himself, eating proper food and practicing chanting Hare Krishna mantra and these things.
But how does he know he's the right person?
Because many of us don't have access to the author, no? That's why.
How does a person who has never read Bhagavad Gita know that that person is an authentic Bhagavad Gita person.
That is.
Yeah, that's a chicken and egg problem. The chicken and egg problem is whether chicken came from the egg or egg came from the chicken. It's going to be tough. That is why we as devotees give out the mercy to the people who are innocent and then searching for this knowledge.
Yeah, they have to trust to us, no? Someone.
We explain if they find the explanations reasonable people will accept it. If they are not reasonable and they are not serious, they are not searching for it, why we need to go and force some whatever we believe on them.
Okay, Prabhu.
They have to be serious enough. If they are not as serious, then no. And the second part is, if you are really serious, in Krishna Bhagavad Gita, he tells that he will guide you from within. He is a Paramatma. We don't need to be so much worried about that. One person has to be very sincere. Okay. Should we move on to next paragraph, or should we stop here and then?
We start. Yeah, I think it's 30 minutes, Prabhu.
Okay, we'll continue from next session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.